They came for you, not because you did something wrong, not because you hurt anyone, not because you broke any rules or crossed any lines. They came for you because you existed, because you were different, because something about the way you carried yourself made them uncomfortable, because your light, even when you were trying to dim it, was still too bright for the rooms they were used to living in. And here's what nobody talks about. The most vicious attacks in life don't come from your enemies. They come from people who smiled at you first, people who sat at your table, people who clapped for you just loud enough so you'd think it was genuine, people who called you friend, family, colleague, and then the moment an opportunity came to tear you down, they took it, without hesitation, without guilt, without mercy. You didn't start a war. You didn't even know there was a war. You were just living. And somehow, just by living, just by being who you are, you became a threat to people who had never even invested a single real moment in your life. This is your story. This is the story of the chosen one who got attacked without cause. And this is the story of what happened after, when the world watched, when the dust settled, and when everyone finally saw the truth. Write 99 in the comments if you've been attacked by someone you never harmed. Keep reading. This message was written for you. Part 1. The silence before the storm. There's a specific kind of peace that comes before the attack. It's the peace of someone who doesn't know they're being watched. The peace of someone building something meaningful, quietly, consistently, with genuine heart. That was you. You weren't on a stage demanding attention. You weren't running around proclaiming your greatness or putting others down to lift yourself up. You were simply doing the work, getting up when it was hard, pushing forward when every rational voice in your head told you to stop, choosing growth when it would have been so much easier to choose comfort. And while you were doing all of that, people were watching, not to cheer for you, not to learn from you, to study you. Because when someone like you starts to rise, when someone who wasn't supposed to make it starts making it, it triggers something deeply uncomfortable in the people around them. It triggers comparison. And comparison, when it isn't channeled into motivation, becomes resentment. They looked at your progress, and instead of asking, how can I build something like that, they asked, why do they get to have that? They looked at your consistency, and instead of being inspired, they felt accused, because your discipline was a mirror, and they hated what they saw in it. So they told themselves a story, a convenient story, a story where you weren't hardworking, you were lucky, where you weren't talented, you were fake, where you weren't genuine, you were manipulative. They rewrote your whole life in their head just so they wouldn't have to confront the real reason they were falling behind. They weren't trying as hard as you. And rather than fix that, rather than do the uncomfortable, ego-destroying work of self-improvement, they chose the easier path. They decided to destroy the mirror. Part 2. The day they came. You'll remember the day it happened, not because it was loud. Sometimes it starts quietly, a whisper here, a subtle comment there. Someone who used to greet you warmly suddenly goes cold. Someone who used to support your work suddenly starts questioning it, loudly, publicly, strategically. You noticed it, of course you did, but you told yourself you were being paranoid. Why would they attack me? I've never done anything to them. And that was your blind spot, because you were operating with a reasonable assumption that people need a reason to attack someone. But here's the brutal truth that life eventually teaches every chosen one. Reason has nothing to do with it. Some people don't attack you because of what you did. They attack you because of what you represent. You represent a possibility they told themselves didn't exist. You represent a path they convinced themselves was closed. You represent a version of life that would require them to change everything about how they've been operating, and they are not willing to do that. So when they attacked you, it wasn't really about you at all. It was about them, their fear, their shame, their unexplored potential rotting quietly inside a life they settled for. You were just the target. And here's where it gets even harder.
The people who attacked you, they didn't just throw one punch and walk away. They campaigned. They talked. They spread half-truths dressed up as concern. They used your name in conversations you were never invited to. They built a case against you, not in a courtroom where you could defend yourself, but in the court of opinion, where the rules are rigged, where rumors travel faster than facts, and where all it takes is enough voices saying the same lie for people to start believing it. And for a moment, maybe a long moment, it worked. People who didn't know you well enough started to doubt you. People on the edge of your circle pulled back. Some stayed silent when they should have spoken. Some repeated things they should have questioned. And you were left standing there, looking around at the wreckage, thinking, how did this happen? What did I do? Was I wrong about who I was?
Part 3, the darkest room. Let's not skip this part, because too many motivational messages want to jump straight to the comeback without honoring the collapse. There was a moment, and you know exactly which moment I'm talking about, where you were alone. Not just physically alone, soul alone. The kind of alone where you're sitting in a room full of people and you feel like you're behind glass, watching their mouths move but not hearing any of the words because your mind is somewhere else entirely, somewhere dark. You replayed everything, every conversation, every decision, every moment where you thought you were building something good. Did I miss something? Was there a warning I ignored? Was this my fault? And then the cruelest thought came. The thought that the people who attacked you wanted you to arrive at. Maybe they're right about me. Maybe you weren't as strong as you thought. Maybe you weren't as good as you believed. Maybe the whole thing, the vision, the work, the hope, was just arrogance wearing the costume of ambition. That room, that dark room in your mind, is the real battlefield. Not the gossip, not the accusations, not even the people who turned their backs. The real battlefield was inside you, and the attack was designed to put you in that room and keep you there. Because if you stayed in that room long enough, you would become the version of yourself they always said you were. Defeated, diminished, done. But here's what happened. You didn't stay. Maybe it took a day, maybe it took a week, maybe it took longer than you'd like to admit, but something in you, something deep, stubborn, unbreakable, refused to let that dark room become a permanent address. You got up. Part 4, the rising no one expected. This is the part that changes everything. Not a dramatic Hollywood-style comeback where the music swells and everyone suddenly sees the truth in a single moment. No, it was quieter than that and more powerful than that. It started with a decision. Not a decision to fight back, not a decision to prove anyone wrong, not even a decision to succeed. It was a decision to be faithful to who you actually are, to stop letting the lies of others dictate the story you lived by, to stop negotiating your identity with people who never took the time to understand it, to stop shrinking yourself to make the fearful people around you more comfortable. You made a decision to get back to work. And that's when the shift began. Because here's what your attackers didn't account for. When you take down a chosen one, when you strike them, shame them, isolate them, you don't destroy them, you refine them. Everything soft gets burned away. Every false friendship gets exposed. Every shallow belief gets tested and either strengthened or discarded. The attack, as devastating as it was also clarifying. You now knew who was real and who was performing. You now knew who stood with you under pressure and who disappeared. You now knew which parts of your foundation were solid and which were borrowed from people-pleasing and fear. You came out of the fire, knowing yourself in a way that is only possible for people who've been tested at the deepest level. And you came out of it alone, but not lonely. You came out of it with the most important company you could ever have, yourself. Fully, without apology. Part 5, when the world watched and finally understood. Here's where the story gets extraordinary, because you weren't the only one watching all of this unfold. Other people were watching too. Some of them were silent bystanders who didn't know what to believe. Some of them were people going through their own version of this exact story. Some of them were future allies, future partners, future champions who were watching you not to see if you won, but to see how you carried yourself in the loss. And what they saw moved them. They watched you take the hit without breaking. They watched you stay consistent when inconsistency would have been completely understandable. They watched you refuse to become what your attackers needed you to become in order to justify their hatred. They watched you stay yourself. And something happened in those people. It's hard to describe. It's a specific feeling that hits you when you witness someone being treated unjustly and refusing to be defined by that injustice. It's a combination of fury and inspiration. Fury because the injustice was real, because what happened to you was wrong, because you didn't deserve it and the people who did it knew it and they did it anyway. And inspiration because you showed them something. You showed them that it's possible to survive the attack. You showed them that identity doesn't have to collapse just because someone tries to tear it down. You showed them that the long game, the quiet, consistent, values-driven long game, eventually tells a truth that no lie can permanently cover. And that's when the tide turned. Not at once, but steadily. People who were silent started to speak. People who pulled back started to return. People who repeated the lies started to question where those lies came from in the first place. The narrative, so carefully constructed by people who wanted your destruction, started to unravel. Because narratives built on lies need constant maintenance. They need people to keep feeding them. They need the target to keep behaving like a guilty person. But you weren't guilty. And you stopped behaving like you were. And the whole carefully built architecture of the attack began to crack.
Part 6. The Furious Ones. The people who rose up for you. There's a specific category of people that every chosen one eventually discovers. The Furious Ones. These are the people who watched what happened to you and could not stay neutral. Not because they needed a cause, not because it was convenient, but because something in your story touched something in their story. Because they had been you. They had been the one sitting in the dark room. They had been the one asking themselves if the attack was their fault. They had been the one who watched former allies go quiet, former smiles go cold, former supporters go distant. They knew exactly what you were going through. And they were furious that it was happening again to someone who, like them, had done nothing to deserve it. These are the people who don't just say, "I support you," in a private message. These are the people who say it out loud, in public, even when it costs them something. These are the people who push back when they hear your name being dragged, who say, "Wait, that's not true. I know this person. Let me tell you what I actually saw." These are the people who write 99 in the comments section at 2 in the morning because this video found them at the exact moment they needed it. Because they recognize you. Because you are them. And they want you to know, they need you to know, that they see you. Not the version of you that your attackers tried to create. The real you. The one who kept going. The one who refused to become the lie. The one who chose faithfulness to their own truth over the approval of people who were never really in your corner. They see that person, and they are furious on your behalf, and they are inspired by your survival. Part 7. What this all means. The message underneath the story. Let's go deeper for a moment, because this story isn't just about one attack, one person, one situation. This is about a pattern, a universal, ancient, deeply human pattern that shows up across every culture, every generation, every type of community, from small families to massive organizations to entire societies. Chosen ones get attacked without cause. Not because the universe is cruel, not because the attackers always win, but because the path of genuine growth and authentic contribution is inherently threatening to stagnation. Wherever there's someone choosing life over comfort, people who have chosen comfort will feel accused. Wherever there's someone choosing truth over approval, people who have built their lives on approval will feel exposed. Wherever there's someone choosing courage over conformity, people who have surrendered their courage will feel confronted. And rather than answer the confrontation with growth, many of them choose to eliminate the mirror. This is the story of every great person who ever lived. History is filled, absolutely packed
met with chosen ones who were attacked without cause, people who were mocked before they were celebrated, dismissed before they were respected, persecuted before they were vindicated. The pattern is so consistent that you could almost set your watch by it. If they're attacking you, you might be more significant than they want you to believe. Not in an arrogant way, not in a way that makes you dismissive of genuine criticism, but in the deep, meaningful, spiritually true sense that the loudest resistance often shows up right before the most important breakthrough. They didn't attack you because you were nothing. They attacked you because you were becoming something, and they could feel it before you could fully see it. I want to talk about who you are becoming, because the attack, as wrong as it was, as painful as it was, as unjust as it was, has been doing something to you that nothing else could have done. It has been building a version of you that is unshakable. Think about it. Before the attack, you might have said you were resilient, but it was theoretical resilience, the kind you haven't had to prove yet. After the attack, after surviving the dark room, the isolation, the rewriting of your narrative and other people's conversations, the silence of people you thought would speak, your resilience is now documented. It's lived. It's embodied. It's real in a way it simply wasn't before. You know something now that you didn't know then. You can survive the unsurvivable. You can survive the attack. You can survive the betrayal. You can survive the silence and the doubt and the dark room and come out the other side still yourself. That knowledge, that lived, embodied, tested knowledge, is one of the most valuable things a human being can possess, because it means that the next time someone comes for you, and in this life there will be a next time, you won't be starting from zero. You'll be starting from proof. Proof that you survived before. Proof that the attack didn't define you. Proof that your identity is not as fragile as your enemies needed it to be. And you'll face the next attack with something else, too. Clarity. You know who your people are now. You know the difference between people who are with you in victory and people who are with you in the valley. You know which relationships were seasonal and which are structural. You know yourself, your real self, stripped of performance and pretense in a way that most people never get the privilege of knowing. And perhaps most importantly, you have a story, a real one, not a manufactured one, not a curated highlight reel, a story with darkness in it, with doubts in it, with unjust attacks and silent nights and moments where you genuinely didn't know if you'd make it. And stories like that, real stories, honest, hard-won stories, are the kind that change people. They're the kind that find someone at 2 a.m, sitting in their own dark room, looking for something that says, "You're not alone in this," and delivers exactly that. Your story is your gift to everyone still fighting what you already survived.
Part 9. A message to the ones who are still in the middle of it. Maybe you're reading this and you haven't gotten to the other side yet. Maybe you're still in the middle of the attack. Still waking up every morning to the weight of it. Still checking your phone with that knot in your stomach. Still replaying conversations and wondering what you could have done differently. Still in the dark room. I need to speak to you specifically. Not to tell you it will be easy, not to pretend the pain isn't real or the situation isn't serious, but to tell you this: your survival is not in question. Not because I know the details of your situation, not because I can guarantee how it will unfold, but because you are still here. You are still reading. You are still seeking. You are still looking for something that resonates, something that helps, something that tells you the truth. That seeking, that refusal to stop even when everything hurts, is the thing that the darkroom cannot take from you as long as you keep moving. The people who attacked you were banking on you staying down. They needed you to accept the version of yourself they were trying to construct. Every day that you get up, even if getting up just means opening your eyes and refusing to fully surrender,
is a day you are defeating them. Not with noise, not with retaliation, not with a counter-campaign or a public response or a strategic display of resilience. Just with existence. Just with a quiet, stubborn, unspectacular act of still being here. That is enough for today. Tomorrow you can build. Next week you can grow. Next year you can look back at this moment and understand what it was building in you. But today, just be here. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Final. The world is watching, and they are furious for the right reasons. Here's how this story ends. Not with an explosion. Not with a dramatic confrontation where justice arrives in perfect, satisfying form. It ends like most real stories end. Gradually, quietly, undeniably. The truth settles in. The people who attacked you find that their campaign has run out of fuel because you refused to give it any. The people who doubted you, some of them, come around, and you handle that with grace because you understand that they were operating with limited information. And grace is not weakness. Grace is confidence. The people who stayed with you through the worst of it, they become some of the most important relationships of your life. And the people who attacked you, they don't disappear. Life isn't always that clean. But they become smaller. Not because you diminished them, but because you grew. And growth has a beautiful way of making the things that once terrified you look like exactly what they always were. People who were afraid of you. People who saw something in you that they couldn't achieve, couldn't take, couldn't break, and chose destruction over the much harder work of self-transformation. People who, in attacking you, actually revealed you. Revealed your resilience. Revealed your community. Revealed your depth. Revealed the unbreakable thing at the center of you that no campaign, no lie, no silence, no betrayal could permanently touch. You are the chosen one. Not because life is easy for you, not because you are protected from pain, but because you were chosen by something, by God, by the universe, by your own undefeatable spirit, to go through the fire and not be consumed, to be tested and not be defined by the test, to be attacked without cause and rise anyway. They came for you, and they woke up something they were not prepared for. If this message found you at the right time, write 99 in the comments. If you've been the chosen one who was attacked without cause, write 99. If you're still in the middle of it and you needed to hear that you will make it, write 99. Share this with the person who is currently in their dark room. They need to know the light is still there. The world is watching, and they are furious, not because you fell, but because you got back up.